Okay, and when the file opens, um, you'll have the option to select the bright field channel. So we always collect the bright field channel because it's a good reference to just look at the tissue. You can identify bubbles and other artifacts pretty easily on bright field. But we don't necessarily want to quantify the pixel intensity. So this is really just a way to exclude that channel from our analysis. So we're going to say OK. And we see this. So just to orient you with kind of how the user input works, you can select your channel up in the top right. So you're on bright field right now. Here's Dappy and Fitzy, which is again our GFAP stain. You can see there's a little zoom icon on the cursor, so you can draw a box around an area and it'll zoom for you. You can right click and say zoom out, right click, reset to original zoom. So what we want to do here, we can adjust the contrast. So contrast is going to change how the image is viewed on screen, but it's not going to change the underlying pixel values. So we can either click into here and say adjust contrast, you say OK, and then it gives you this histogram of the pixel intensities. You can manually drag that over, same as you would any other brightness and contrast program that you've used. A shortcut here is you can just type in 2 or 5% here, and that will kind of auto range, cutting off, I want to say about 2% of either side. Then when we're done, we have to click X out of here. And we want to annotate this image. So we want to tell the software where the boundary of this hole is. So at one point we had an automatic way of determining that. So you basically kind of point to this area and the program finds the dark area. And automatically determine the boundaries, but we kind of figured out that was not, it worked half the time it didn't, and by the time we messed around with debugging and figuring out the errors, it was faster to just do it manually anyways. Okay, so we say set hole manually. This prompts us to draw a rectangle around the ROI, which is our region of interest. In this case, it's our hole, and double click when finished. So we can draw a rectangle around here and double click on the inside of the box. And that'll just zoom in, and this will help keep us from having to squint as we're clicking on the screen. Okay, and I would say this is a notable improvement from our previous version of the software, which did not allow for that zoom. So again, once we're complete with that, you can see when we mouse over that last point, you get this circle instead of crosshairs, and you can double click on that last point, which will complete your outline, and you can see we now have a hole outlined in the center with yellow. Okay, this tissue's in pretty good shape. I wouldn't actually think there are any exclusions to apply, but just for demonstration, let's go ahead and define one. So we go up to Setup, Define Exclusion, and let's just say we're going to exclude this patch of small holes over here, which these could be blood vessels, these could be just small little terror artifacts from slicing. It's kind of hard to say. All right, so we'll double click when finished. Okay, so we have our hole defined and we have some exclusion over here. So this would normally, again, be like a bubble, a tear. These are relatively small and probably won't impact the analysis very much. When we're saying bubbles, we're talking about, big things. And as long as they're not directly over your hole or somehow interfering in a large way, you may still be able to use the image, but I would say use your best judgment and explore that. So once you have annotated your hole, your exclusions, you'll go up to Setup and Save. So I'm uploading a separate video that talks about an error that I ran into when I was trying to save. If your files are in a protected directory, like your C program files directory, you might get an error, which is a Windows write permission error. So it's probably best to make sure all of your files are in some user directory or the desktop so that you can, the program has read and write access. Okay, so when you press Save Configuration, okay, it's going to say, oh, that already exists because I just already did that. Do you want to overwrite? Sure. When you do that, what it's physically doing is saving a new file in your test images directory. So these are our 3 TIFF channels, and it's saving this _sconfig.mat file. So this is just going to be a file that contains your annotations. Okay, and you would move on to your next image. So you could do set up as many images as you'd like, and when you're done, you would have a directory full of folders that contain separate sconfig files. All right, so here we only have the one test image. In the next video, we'll talk about now how to do the analysis.